Let's get comfortable, shall we? And let's talk about Romance Con. I am wearing my Romance Con shirt, and so I thought this would be the perfect time. It's been about a week. I've had time to sit and think about my experience at the first ever Romance Con in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So let's start off by saying this is its first year. There's going to be some hiccups, there's going to be some little bumps in the road. And overall, I think RomanceCon did a great job. I know the company Mischief Management does put on a bunch of different conventions throughout the year, all over the US. So this isn't their first time running a con, but this was their first time running RomanceCon. So I'm going to start out with what I thought was great about the convention and then stuff I think that they could do a little bit better as someone who does work and staff and volunteer at many different types of conventions, mainly anime conventions. So the good, I thought that for the size of the convention this year, the space was great. I feel like they used the first floor of the Barrett Center perfectly. Do I think they could have moved a couple of the Friday panels into a smaller panel room so that it wasn't just a big empty space? Sure. And do I think they could have moved some of the ones on Saturday into a bigger space because there's a lot of people standing? Also, yes. But that's always hard to predict how many people are going to be going to these panels and stuff like that. But overall, I think the use of the space that they had was great. The signing hall, amazing. Like, I think the way they did the ticketing system was perfect. No notes on that, really. The one thing I do hope is that once the line got a little too long, I hope they stopped handing out tickets. Only for the fact that I hope they didn't be like, oh yeah, we'll get to your number, and then them not get to the number, and then, the person not get a signature when they thought they would. But I didn't run into that issue at all. I thought, sure, it was a little cramped. I thought they did use the space well. The setup was great. And I do think that anime conventions can take note of that ticketing system so that people don't have to wait in hour-long lines. They can get the ticket and come back when their ticket is called. I thought that was a genius idea. I absolutely love that. And I do think places like Twin Cities Con or Anime Milwaukee can really take note of that and utilize that. The next thing that I thought was great, not the location, not just the space. I've been to the Barrett Center multiple times for Anime Milwaukee, and it felt weird only being used in that little small space, but the location of the convention was perfect. There are many hotels nearby, not lots of great food, so they really did pick a great location for the convention. The swag bags, I thought the bags had I wasn't expecting to get 3 physical books in each bag and an ebook and everything that I got in there. I thought the swag bags and then the bag itself was a great quality too. And they even had a craft night where you could decorate your bag. Like, that's thinking right there. And yeah, I just thought overall it was a great convention, and I'll definitely be going back next year. But as I said, there were things I thought they could do better. One of the main things is the panels themselves, the content. While I love a good Q&A session, I do wish there were more panels that were put on by attendees. Or there was an author put on a game show where it's like, how well do you know my books? And you could win prizes, like a signed book for first place, art prints for second place, stuff like that. That really always goes over well at anime conventions. So I definitely think they could utilize more attendee involved panels and not just, have a moderator ask authors questions and then for the last like 15 minutes, like the audience gets to ask questions and they only get through like 4 questions, like there's definitely stuff they could do better in terms of that. And finally, the biggest thing that I experienced was I was supposed to be a volunteer this year. I bought my ticket months in advance, and then they finally put out like the volunteer forms like I think a month and a half before the convention, and that was already like 2 months after I bought my ticket. Like I bought my ticket well in advance, but I was like, well, I like volunteering and they're advertising for volunteers that you get a free ticket to the convention. And I'm like, perfect. I won't have to pay. I'll get a refund for my ticket for working the convention. Because that's what's happened in the past when I became a staff member or a volunteer after I bought my ticket. They refunded me the ticket. And if I didn't, if I didn't follow through with my commitment, like they would recharge the card or they wouldn't refund it until after the event and me proving that I volunteered. So I volunteered on Thursday night to help set up and Sunday night to tear down. And so that was going to be my 6 hours of volunteering to get my badge. Well, in the volunteer meeting they had before the event, I was like, hey, this is my situation. Already bought my badge. How will I be reimbursed? And they were like, well, you can give your badge to a friend. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. It's literally 2 days before the event. I live 4 hours away. I can't get a friend to come. And all my friends that live in Madison or in Madison, Milwaukee, they already have plans this weekend. It's too short notice. And they were like, well, just send us an email and we'll figure something out. Well, I send them an email, and of course I get back that we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 days. The generic response email. 2 to 3 days is the convention. So I was like, well, I'll ask on Thursday night after I'm done volunteering. I asked during volunteering, they're like, talk to customer service on Friday. I talked to customer service on Friday, and they're like, we're not reimbursing you. Too bad, so sad. I'm like, what? That was nowhere in any other, the only thing in the agreements I signed is that I'd be reimbursed, for my ticket. There was nothing about not getting reimbursed if you already bought your ticket. It was just you would get a ticket. I'm like, well, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have signed up to volunteer because I've wasted a whole day of PTO to volunteer for you guys, and now I'm not getting reimbursed. Well, so then I was like, well, I'm not going to show up on Sunday then. And I went and talked to the volunteer coordinator, and they were like, yeah, we understand. We're sorry for the miscommunication. And I'm like, so yeah, in the end, I didn't end up volunteering on Sunday. I only volunteered on Thursday, but if you plan on volunteering for one of Mischief Management's events, don't buy a ticket in advance unless they change this policy, which I hope they do, because it's if you only put out your volunteer stuff a month and a half to the event, there's so many people who already bought tickets that would like to volunteer. So I hope they do change that in the future, because I would love to volunteer for them again, but I also don't want to, I want to buy it's just kind of messy. So yeah, all in all, the event was great. Majority of the staff, super nice. I would highly recommend going to this event next year. I just would not recommend volunteering if you already plan on buying a badge. That's the TLDR. And yeah, I hope with all that information, it goes into your consideration. But, with all that said, I do hope you end up going next year, because it is a great event with great people, great environment. I felt super safe. It was mainly a community of women supporting other women. So that ends my rant. Thank you.